Michael Bisping was breaking down the pending fight, Chimaev and Whittaker. You know, that is a massive fight. By the way, I mean, I got to tell you, like, fights that pop off the page, we're on the eaves of 300, right? Supposed to be the biggest fight card of all time. Supposed to be. And I'll be very curious what that live gate is. I'd be curious right now if there's any tickets still available. My guess is there are not. But every now and then the UFC will sell tiered. They'll have multiple tiers so they can hold them out just so any of you that get to the party late or don't get the newsletters, aren't part of fan club, can still have some level of opportunity. So there could still be some seats only because they haven't been opened. I share that with you. I was blown away at the live gate of 291. Or 299. 299, O'Malley versus Cheeto. For reference, $14 million gate. 14 and change. Unbelievable. I used to have the live gate record. And we were at 7.9 million. That was the absolute record. And it was a huge thrill to have that and to get that. 14.1. And I don't think you guys even knew that. I don't think that's been celebrated anywhere. I know it's been commented on. I know that information is out there, but I don't know that that was headline worthy and you take it and you highlight it with the yellow marker. And so now I'm looking at 300 and going, well, what's that gate going to be? Just how high can that be? Put in perspective for you guys, when Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor fought, that was a champ situation, one of the great storylines. It was the debut for the UFC in New York. You can't redo those things, right? You can't re-get that kind of an atmosphere. They did a $17+ million gate. So for $14 million to come in at $299, a card in Miami that almost by mistake turned out to be one of your guys' most anticipated favorite cards. I'm just curious about 300. And I bring all of that to you because with all of the great fights that we have, of the ones that are announced, there is something where I'm finding more people discussing Chimaev versus Whittaker. So, and there's so many things at play there. The greatest feud that we've ever seen, even though we only had it for 11 days, was Adesanya Duplessis. That was so hot, it was melting airwaves, and people didn't want to touch it. People didn't know where landmines or tricks were. You have a black man from Africa. You have a white man from Africa, both of which are claiming they are the true African. This had brought everybody's eyes, everybody closed their mouth, everybody ears open, and they just didn't know what to do with it. They just didn't know. They got uncomfortable. And I'm sharing that with you because if that gets revived, there's going to be something very exciting to look forward to. And people do want that revived, but how do we get there? Which again is why it is important that we got the Whittaker-Chimaev announcement. You start taking those pieces off the board, just by process of elimination, you start to see, okay, this Duplessis and Izzy business is getting closer and closer. But it also does make you wonder what happens with Strickland. There was discussion of Strickland being able to go right in for a championship. There is a mandate of the masses, which is you guys, that said the fight that you most prefer to see. And you love the idea of Izzy Duplessis. You loved it. But you loved even more Strickland back in there with Duplessis. I will tell you that surprised me. But either way, when we come to this kind of conclusion, and we're not in such a hurry, right? We're not up against it time-wise. Like 300 felt like, hey, it's kind of a rush. And it's not just the fights that we want or even the fights that are most appropriate. It's also who can make this date. But now that those things are removed, you can exhale a little bit and you can start to go with absolutely anybody that you want. Strickland is feeling left out. And can we all agree that Strickland is in the conversation on a short list? It's got to be a very short list for guys that could go and fight for the title right now, for number one contender. Can we all agree, as the former champion who competed ever so close to the point that many say controversial. Can we agree that he is one of those guys? Great. You may not give him the nod. That's okay. But as long as we can agree that he's on that short list, then if he doesn't get the nod, is he next? So one of those situations where we got to have a queue. You might remember Leon was going to fight Colby, but Blahal was a great option too. So we're going to go Leon, Colby. Blahal gets to sit. Blahal will then take on the winner. Is it a situation like that for Sean Strickland? And nobody said it was. Is it a backup situation where Sean might be able to go in? Nobody said he was. And it would seem as though if we get along this journey, if you're still on board, if you haven't outright disagreed with anything that I've just said, then it would seem as though, right, if he can't get the title, then we're to the next best thing, which is he gets dibs on it. To the next best thing, which is he's the backup fighter. To the next best thing, that he finds himself in a number one contenders match. We're now 3 steps down and we haven't heard Sean's name. I mean, that is one of the bigger things about Whittaker versus Chimaev. Sean himself, who is a student of the sport, is able to look back, see that, and go, hard for me to imagine that being a 5-round main event on ABC doesn't get a little something lit underneath it. Hard for me to imagine that the winner of this fight is not going to be recognized in a more proper way. Where do I fit in? What do I got to do? What are my options? What are my opportunities? When is my next match? I mean, in all fairness, this is what had Strickland put his hands up. And I wonder if you guys agree with that. Do you agree that Sean isn't in the title hunt? He's not in backup position. He's not even in the number one contenders match. And then there is a question for where is he? And where does he go? Now, these things always have a way of working themselves out and really fast, right? Anytime somebody ever says, well, it just doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense, anytime they use a phrase like that, they are speaking to the options that they have thought of, which means they're limited to their own creativity. So whatever the plan is with Sean, we just haven't been revealed that yet. I'm letting you know where this came from. And Michael Bisping spoke on this. And he was talking about Whittaker versus Chimaev. And Michael was even a little further ahead. He started to get into the X's and O's. And he started to talk about, you got these 2 great fighters. He was praising them both. And he made the statement, but obviously, Chimaev gasses out. And to say that Chimaev gasses is a fair observation. You could even point to the Gilbert Burns fight where he was exhausted, or you could point to the Kamaru Usman fight where he was exhausted. But it was the way that Michael said, obviously, he gasses out. Where I'm going, wait a minute, is this something that's known through the industry? Like, is that what people believe about Chimaev? That you can get him tired? Because, one, that would surprise me. I didn't know that people viewed him that way. And if that is an accurate assumption that he's one of these guys that gets tired, then championship rounds, particularly against somebody like Robert Whittaker, who can stay out there and he'll fight you all night long, but that could become problematic. But the longest fights that Chimaev had, which are 15 rounds, which are broken into rounds of 5 minutes, which would mean the 3rd round is the last round, a guy that gets tired by concept, where you think there's something within the blueprint to beat him, would be fatiguing in the 3rd round. But if we're going to go look at the Kamaru Usman fight, or we were going to look at the Gilbert Burns fight, Chimaev won the 3rd round. So I don't know if that's a fair assessment. Now, Michael Bisping knows what he's looking at, and I don't find myself watching something and Michael watching and us coming to different opinions very often. But I also believe every fighter should be absolutely exhausted when that fight is over. Even if it's 6 minutes and it's a stoppage, I feel he should be absolutely exhausted. I feel you should take whatever it is you have and you leave it in there. What would you be holding it for? If you're in a 3-round fight and there is no 4th round, why would you be saving energy for the 4th round? I mean, I only suggest that because the guy that gets tired, the guy that we talk about for getting tired, there's another step. It's not just that he's tired. When we talk about him, what it means is that he fatigues, he quits fighting as hard, and there's an opportunity to beat him. Exhaustion makes a coward out of all men. It is a great intangible. If you can just get your opponent so tired that he wilts, And generally, anybody that we say gets tired or gets exhausted, it's because they have that other ingredient, which is that they wilt. I haven't seen that with Chimaev, and I was surprised when Michael identified it. I think that somebody might be making a mistake if within their game plan, they believe I can put a pressure on him and get him to back down. I do believe you can get him tired like all human beings. I do believe that that pressure is very wise, especially in a sport like mixed martial arts. Can you put a wise pressure on him and make him relinquish, make his will and his spirit go away? That I have not yet seen.